My fiancé slept with my cousin during my mother's funeral week, so I ended everything quietly and left her to face the shame alone. I'm a 29-year-old man, and the week my mother died was already the darkest chapter of my life, but I had no idea it was about to get so much worse. We weren't rich growing up, but my mom held the whole family together with nothing but grit and love. She raised me alone after my dad bailed when I was 6. Everything I became, every bit of decency in me came from her. So when the call came that she'd passed suddenly from a heart attack, it felt like the floor just dropped out from under me. I remember dropping the phone. Just silence, and then my fiancée Cassie rushing in from the next room asking what happened. She held me while I sobbed on the kitchen floor. I could barely breathe. She kept whispering, "I've got you. I've got you." In that moment, I believed her. Cassie and I had been together for 5 years, engaged for 1. She was my rock during all the chaos that followed. She helped me contact the funeral home, called relatives, organized the memorial with my sister, Maya. I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through those days without her. She even let my cousin Jared stay over to help out. He flew in from out of state and didn't have anywhere else to crash. Cassie said, "You need people who love you around you right now." It felt like she meant it. I remember sitting on the back porch with Jared the night before the funeral. We didn't talk much. He just passed me a beer and said, "She'd be proud of you." I nodded, trying to believe that. At that point, I had no idea both of them were already lying to my face, and not just about something small. About everything. The days leading up to the funeral were a blur. Grief has a way of stretching time. Every hour felt like a year, and yet it all passed in a haze. People came and went, casseroles piled up on the dining table, and everyone kept offering the same 5 phrases in different tones. "She's in a better place. She loved you so much. Stay strong." And my least favorite, "Let us know if you need anything." But the only person I leaned on was Cassie. She never left my side. She sat beside me during the visitation, handed me tissues when I couldn't speak, and somehow managed to look composed while I crumbled. Every night, I'd fall asleep wrapped around her thinking, thank God I have her. She even offered to help Maya go through Mom's things. I told her she didn't have to, but she said, "You're not doing this alone." Not on my watch. Jared, meanwhile, played the charming cousin role. He was helping out too, running errands, driving guests to and from the airport, cracking jokes that fell flat, but softened the edges of the grief. It almost felt like we were all a team. I remember one night in particular. It was late. Maya had gone home. Jared had gone upstairs to shower. Cassie and I sat on the couch, my head on her lap. She ran her fingers through my hair and said softly, "You're the strongest man I know." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to think the world wasn't crumbling under my feet. I even whispered back, "I don't know what I'd do without you." She kissed my forehead and said, "You'll never have to find out." But the truth? That exact moment, she had already chosen to betray me. Grief makes you paranoid. That's what I kept telling myself when I started noticing things that didn't sit right. It began with glances, not the kind you imagine, but the kind that hang in the air a little too long. Once I walked into the living room and saw Jared and Cassie sitting on opposite ends of the couch. They weren't touching. They weren't talking. But when I entered, they both jerked their heads toward me like I'd interrupted something. I brushed it off. I had to brush it off. I wasn't in the right mental state, and I knew it. I told myself I was being oversensitive, that I was seeing shadows in the fog of grief. But then came the late-night errands. Cassie claimed she was running to the pharmacy to grab painkillers for my headaches. Jared said he was heading out to grab food when I clearly remembered leftovers in the fridge. Once, they were both gone at the same time and came back separately 10 minutes apart. Jared from the front door, Cassie from the garage. "Where'd you guys go?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. Cassie blinked, then laughed. "Me? Just the store. Needed pads." "You don't want those details, babe," Jared said. "I hit up Taco Bell. Want anything?" I nodded slowly, pretending I believed them. But inside, my stomach turned. The last straw, or maybe the first real red flag, was finding Jared's hoodie draped over the back of our kitchen chair, with a faint pink lipstick stain near the collar. Cassie doesn't wear pink lipstick. Not usually, but she had the day before. Still, I didn't say anything, not then, because saying it out loud would make it real. And I wasn't ready for real. It was the night before the funeral when it really hit me. Not the betrayal itself, but the feeling that I was standing on the edge of something horrible. Something I couldn't unsee once it came into focus. I'd gone out to pick up my mom's favorite flowers from a little shop she used to love, white lilies. The florist had wrapped them in brown paper, and I carried them like they were made of glass. I remember thinking, this is the last gift I'll ever give her.
The sun was setting by the time I got home. When I reached the front door, I realized I didn't have my keys.
I rang the bell once. No answer. Then I knocked. Still nothing. Cassie? I called. Jared? Nothing. I stood there for nearly 20 minutes. Just as I was pulling out my phone to call her, the door opened a crack. Cassie peeked out, hair messy, face flushed, and said, "Oh, sorry. We were in the back. Didn't hear you, we." I stepped in. Jared wasn't in sight. She said he went out to grab wine for the after-service gathering. I walked through the house like a ghost. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard something, a creak upstairs. Maybe a floorboard. Maybe my heart cracking in half. I looked up at the staircase and froze. The guest bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I swear I saw a shadow move behind it. But before I could speak, Cassie grabbed my hand. "Let's sit outside," she said, voice too cheerful, like she was trying to steer me away. "It's a nice night." I followed her. I sat beside her on the porch swing, but my mind stayed upstairs. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. But I still prayed I was wrong. The funeral was unbearable. I stood there in that black suit, watching them lower my mother into the ground, and all I could think about was how empty everything felt. People whispered condolences, hugged me, cried beside me, but I didn't feel any of it. I was numb, hollow. Cassie held my hand through the entire service. She cried harder than most of my own relatives. Anyone watching would have thought she was the grieving daughter. And yet, her touch didn't comfort me that day. It irritated me. Every time she squeezed my hand, I felt like I was being squeezed out of my own reality. Back at my house, we had a quiet post-service dinner. Mostly family. Maya sat across from me, her face tight, lips pursed. She wasn't eating. She just kept glancing between Cassie and Jared. Jared was his usual charming self, cracking jokes that didn't land, trying to lift the mood. At one point, he refilled Cassie's wine glass without her even asking. She didn't thank him. She just smirked. Then it happened. Maya stood up suddenly and slammed her hand on the table. "You're disgusting," she spat, glaring straight at Jared. "You really did that? Now, of all weeks?" Silence. Cassie dropped her fork. Jared's face turned beet red. My aunt stuttered, "Maya, what are you talking about?" But Maya didn't say another word. She stormed out, shaking with rage. Cassie stood up next, almost robotically, and said, "I'm going to get some air." Jared followed her without saying a thing. The room was frozen. My uncle coughed awkwardly. Someone muttered, "What the hell was that?" I sat there still staring at Maya's untouched plate, a lump forming in my throat. Something had just cracked wide open, and I was about to drown in it. I found Maya sitting on the hood of her car, arms crossed, tears barely held back. When she saw me coming, she looked away. "Don't," she said. "Please don't ask me." I was trying not to ruin the day, but I needed to know. My voice was already cracking when I asked, "What did you mean in there?" "What did Jared do?" She closed her eyes like she was about to jump off a cliff. Then she looked straight at me and said, "I saw them, Alex, Cassie and Jared, together in the guest room." I blinked. "What do you mean, together?" Her voice dropped. "I mean having sex. 2 nights ago. You were out at the florist. I came over to drop off a casserole, walked in without knocking because the door was open, and I heard them. I saw them. I didn't want to, but I did. I physically staggered backward. I remember grabbing the side mirror of her car to keep from falling." "No," I whispered. "You must have misunderstood." Maya shook her head violently. I wish I had. I almost confronted them right then. But then I saw your mom's photo on the kitchen counter. I couldn't do that to you. I figured I'd wait. Tell you later. But I couldn't sit through that dinner. Watching them pretend. The world was spinning. My stomach lurched like I was going to throw up. I wanted to scream. Punch something. Beg her to take it back. But deep down I already knew. All those weird glances. The locked door. the lipstick stain. It all clicked into place, like puzzle pieces forming a nightmare, and just like that, my grief doubled. Because now I was mourning two deaths, my mother, and the life I thought I had. I walked back inside like a ghost. Everything sounded muffled, like I was underwater. Laughter, clinking glasses, the low hum of conversation. But none of it reached me. I just kept hearing Maya's voice in my head. I saw them, together, in the guest room. Cassie found me near the hallway, her smile faltering when she saw my face. "Hey, you okay?" she asked, reaching for my arm. I pulled back. "We need to talk," I said, barely above a whisper. "Now!" She followed me into the bedroom, closing the door behind her like it was some romantic retreat. I turned to face her, my hands shaking. "Did you sleep with Jared?" Her eyes widened, then narrowed. "What?" "Don't play dumb," I said, louder now. "Maya saw you. She told me everything." Cassie stared at me for a long moment. Then, "I swear to God," she laughed. Not loud, not maniacal. Just this quiet, broken giggle like I'd asked her if the sky was green. "Oh my God, Alex," she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You're seriously believing her? You're seriously denying it?" She folded her arms. "Maya hates me. She's always hated me. And now she's using your mom's death to poison your head." My fists clenched.
So you're saying it never happened?
Cassie looked away, lips trembling. "I didn't plan anything. You've been distant. You shut down emotionally. I was grieving too, but you were unreachable. I needed comfort." I took a step back like she'd slapped me. "So you let my cousin comfort you? While I was planning my mother's funeral?" She didn't respond. Just stared at the floor, and in that silence I realized something chilling. She wasn't sorry. She was caught. That night I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Cassie had gone back downstairs pretending nothing happened. Jared avoided me entirely. Maya had already left. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling. My mind unraveling like a thread pulled too tight. I kept replaying every moment from the last week, every kiss Cassie gave me, every casual joke Jared made, every time I felt something was off but told myself I was just grieving. The truth was screaming at me now, louder than my denial could bury. The next morning, while Cassie was still asleep, I went looking for her old phone, the one she used before upgrading a few months back. I'd seen it once in her nightstand drawer, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I needed to see it. I found it. No passcode. Maybe she thought it was dead weight. Maybe she forgot it still had her messages synced. But as soon as it lit up, my heart sank. There were messages from Jared, dozens, some recent. Some dating back months. One of them read, "Last night was risky, but so worth it. He doesn't suspect a thing." Another, "Don't feel guilty. He's not really there for you emotionally. Not like I am." There were selfies. A few blurry, suggestive ones. A voice note. I don't know why I pressed play, but I heard Jared's voice, low and smug. "One more night. That's all I'm asking. Then we'll figure it out." He doesn't need to know, my vision blurred. My hands went cold. I dropped the phone on the bed and backed away like it was on fire. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It wasn't grief-induced confusion. It was an affair, planned, repeated, hidden, with my own blood, and in that moment, something inside me died. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, phone still lit beside me like a piece of evidence in a crime scene. It was surreal. Like I was watching someone else's life implode in slow motion. I could hear Cassie moving around downstairs, laughing lightly on the phone with someone, maybe even Jared, the woman I was supposed to marry. The woman I'd planned a future with. I kept thinking about the night I proposed. It was in a tiny Italian restaurant, her favorite. I'd slipped the ring into her tiramisu. She cried when she found it. Said yes before I even got the words out. Jared was the first person I called after. He yelled, "Finally, man!" and told me I'd hit the jackpot, my cousin, the man I'd trusted to stand next to me on my wedding day. He was already sleeping with her while I was planning that future. I remember this one time, it hit me out of nowhere, when Jared helped me choose the wedding venue. He'd leaned over and whispered, "You sure you're ready for this?" I thought he meant cold feet. Now I wonder if it was guilt. And Cassie? All those nights she came home late from work. All those emotional support hugs between her and Jared while I was trying to keep it together. They weren't moments of empathy. They were lies, cover-ups, rehearsals for betrayal. I sat there for hours, motionless, while the light in the room changed from morning to late afternoon. My body was frozen, but my mind was racing. They didn't just betray me. They made me question everything I believed about loyalty, love, and family, and that's when the rage gave way to something colder. Not revenge. Not yet. Strategy. I didn't tell them I knew. Not yet. I went downstairs like nothing had happened. Cassie smiled at me like we hadn't just shared the most hollow, humiliating week of my life. She asked if I wanted breakfast. I nodded. Jared showed up 10 minutes later with coffee and a smug grin that made my skin crawl. I said good morning. I played my part, because I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me broken. I was going to disappear. On my terms. That night, after they both went to sleep, I got to work. I logged into our shared wedding account and started canceling vendors one by one. The venue deposit was non-refundable. I didn't care. The photographer, the caterer, the band, all gone. I changed the passwords, shut down the wedding website, deleted the RSVP list. I emptied our joint savings account and transferred my half into a private one. She'd only contributed 15%. I left it there, not out of mercy but calculation. Let her fight for crumbs while explaining why the rest vanished. I called my landlord and gave my 30-day notice. Told him I'd pay extra to break the lease early. Then I rented a small furnished apartment 2 cities over. 1 bedroom, no memories. I made a list. Move out, essentials, get storage unit backup, important files, forward, mail delete, old voicemails, block numbers, later. The next day, I smiled through brunch with Jared and Cassie like I wasn't secretly preparing to vanish from their lives forever, because I wasn't interested in screaming matches or dramatic confrontations. I wanted silence. I wanted absence. And I wanted the truth to be all they had left, echoing in the space where I used to be. 3 days later, the house was empty. I waited until I knew Cassie and Jared would both be gone. They had plans to meet some of her college friends for lunch. I said I wasn't feeling well and stayed back. They left around noon. By 4 p.m., I was gone. I'd packed only what mattered: clothes, my mother's jewelry, old photo albums, legal documents, and my laptop. Everything else went into a storage unit under my name. I left the ring, the same one I used to think symbolized forever, on the kitchen counter. But more than the ring, I left them something else. A manila envelope. Inside were color printouts of the texts I found. Screenshots of the voice messages, a copy of the wedding cancellation email, and one short note, typed, not handwritten, that simply read, "You two deserve each other, no name." No explanation. Just facts. I laid it in the center of the dining table, next to a half-burned vanilla candle Cassie used to light during dinner. The whole place still smelled like her. As I stood in the doorway one last time, I looked around that house. The place where I'd imagined raising kids, growing old, building a life. And now, it was just drywall and lies. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I locked the door, slid my key underneath, and walked away. No texts, no calls, no dramatic goodbye, just silence. And the quiet knowledge that when they came home, they'd walk into a house filled with shame, and no one left to lie to. It took less than 48 hours for the fallout to begin. I didn't block Maya. She was the only one who never betrayed me. She called me that night after they found the envelope. Her voice was shaky, half horrified, half impressed. "They came home," she said. "Cassie screamed so loud I thought someone got stabbed. Apparently Jared went pale when he saw the screenshots." Tried to deny it at first, said the messages were out of context, said it was just emotional support. But Cassie didn't even bother lying. She crumpled to the floor and sobbed. Begged Maya to help her find me. I told her I wasn't her therapist, Maya said flatly, and that if she wanted closure, she should start with a mirror. Over the next few days, I started getting little updates, not because I asked, but because Maya couldn't resist. Cassie posted a long-winded Facebook status about being abandoned and how some men just can't forgive mistakes. She didn't mention the cheating. Just played the victim like I'd ghosted her out of nowhere. The comments were brutal. People asked, "What happened?" Someone even wrote, "Didn't you just post pics with Jared a week ago?" She deleted it within hours. Jared, on the other hand, got the cold shoulder from the family. My uncle called me privately and said, "Son, I'm so sorry. We didn't raise him like this." I didn't say much. Just listened. They were unraveling, slowly, publicly, and deliciously. And me? I was sitting in my new apartment. No furniture yet. Just a mattress, a lamp, and my mother's photo on the nightstand. But for the first time in weeks, I breathed. And it didn't hurt. A week later, I got an email from Jared, subject line, "I owe you an explanation." I almost deleted it without opening. But curiosity, or maybe morbid satisfaction, got the better of me. It was long. Way too long. He talked about grief, about how losing Mom shook everyone and blurred the lines. He claimed he and Cassie leaned on each other emotionally and that it accidentally turned into something physical. He said it only happened a few times, and every time he felt guilty afterward, as if that made it better. He never once used the word affair. Never said betrayal. Just slip, moment, confusion. He called it a mistake, like he'd dropped a plate. Not slept with my fiancée while I was planning my mother's funeral. He ended the email with, "I hope one day you can forgive me. I miss my cousin. I miss my best friend." I read it twice. Not because I cared, but because I wanted to feel something. I didn't. I didn't reply. I didn't scream or forward it to the rest of the family or take it to Facebook like they did. I just archived it, let him sit in silence. Let him wonder. A few days later, I got a similar message from Cassie. This time it was text. 4 paragraphs of self-pity dressed up as remorse. I was in pain too. "You weren't there emotionally." Jared was just present. Then the line that stuck with me. "You leaving like that was cruel." Cruel? No, sweetheart. Sleeping with my cousin was cruel. Silence was mercy. Cassie didn't take well to being ignored. After I didn't respond to her text, she started posting vague quotes on Instagram, stuff like, "Some people only love you when you're useful, and real men fight for love, not run from it." Every line more passive-aggressive than the last, but the internet doesn't forget. Someone, probably one of Maya's cousins, started commenting under each post. "Didn't you sleep with his cousin while his mom was being buried?" Her page went private within a day. Then came the unraveling. Wedding vendors started tagging her in posts demanding payment for canceled services. Turns out she'd committed to contracts under her name. Without me there to split costs or explain the situation, she was left scrambling. One florist even posted a receipt. Cassie had ghosted them after they special ordered 400 white roses. Then came the job. She worked in HR at a mid-sized company, a role that depended heavily on public image and professionalism. But someone forwarded her Facebook breakdown to her supervisor. Within days, she was let go for personal reasons. Jared? Oh, he was drowning in his own mess. His girlfriend back home found out everything and dumped him. My extended family, the ones who used to call us inseparable, stopped speaking to him entirely. Meanwhile, Maya and I grabbed coffee one rainy evening. She slid her phone across the table and showed me a screenshot. Cassie's latest story. It read, "Some people destroy everything good because they're scared of getting hurt." I tried, I loved. He ran. I stared at it, then chuckled. "Let her spin whatever story she wants," I said, sipping my coffee. I'm not chasing truth in her circus, because the beauty of walking away quietly is that the shame speaks louder than I ever could. Rebuilding wasn't quick. It wasn't clean, but it was mine. At first, I struggled just to get out of bed. The betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was personal. It was familial. It rewired something in my brain. Trust didn't come easy after that. Neither did sleep. I started going to therapy, something I never thought I'd do. Told my therapist everything. The funeral, the texts, the envelope, the silence. She didn't interrupt. Didn't try to fix me. She just let me feel it. And that alone helped. I got a new job. Nothing flashy but stable. One where no one knew my story, where I could just exist without side glances or whispered condolences. I even joined a local boxing gym, needed a way to burn the anger, even if I wasn't throwing punches at the right people. Dating? Yeah, I tried. Tinder, Hinge, a couple of coffee dates. But I was different now, guarded in ways I hadn't been before. One woman asked why I flinched when she mentioned having a big, close-knit family. I just smiled and said, "It's a long story." Some nights I'd scroll through old photos, birthdays, road trips, silly selfies with Cassie, and I'd feel that ache again. Not for her, but for the version of me that believed in her. That believed love meant loyalty, but I kept moving forward. Eventually, I started writing. At first, it was just for me, late-night rants in a Google Doc. Then I joined a subreddit for people who'd been betrayed. I posted my story anonymously. The responses were overwhelming. People saw themselves in my pain. They thanked me for putting it into words. I wasn't just healing anymore. I was helping, and for the first time in months, that made me feel whole again. It's been almost a year now. Sometimes I still think about that week. The funeral, the envelope, the look on Cassie's face when she realized I was gone. I wonder if the silence haunts her the way their betrayal haunted me. If Jared still tells people we just drifted apart. If she still blames the funeral for driving us into disaster instead of owning what they chose to do. But honestly, I don't care, because I've made peace with something they never will. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't destroy anything on my way out. I just left. And left them to sit with what they did. I still get emails from mutual friends sometimes. Mostly gossip. Jared moved to another city. Cassie's still unemployed. They're not together, by the way. That imploded within weeks. Apparently, betrayal isn't a great foundation for love. Maya, though, she's still in my corner. We talk weekly. She even helped me find my new apartment. She told me once, "You handled it better than I ever could have." If it were me, I would have gone full soap opera. I smiled and said, "Silence was louder." Because that's the truth. The absence I left behind. It echoed in every room they walked through. Every excuse they gave. Every lie they told to explain why I was suddenly gone. I never got revenge. I never needed it. They destroyed themselves just fine. And me? I built something new from the ashes. Quieter, stronger, smarter. I loved hard. I trusted deeply. And when they shattered it, I let them keep the pieces, but they don't get to keep me.